Right, we do need to move on. So the next item is number 6, which is use of force.
Okay, again, just by way of introduction, there was a requirement placed on all forces by the Home Office to record the use of force and submit the data to the Home Office. Interestingly, there is at least one force that derogates from this requirement, so not all forces are actually following this request. It's in his first year in terms of the data that we've collected, and inevitably it takes a little while for the new process to bed in across the whole of the service and to make sure that we're recording the data accurately and consistently, and indeed in terms of volumes. So I'll ask Tim just to take us through the highlights of this report, but just to flag up, one of the things that we do just want to share with the public is some of those categories that count as use of force, because I suspect that at least one of them the public might not necessarily recognise, that even just by talking to people in a particular way is viewed as use of force. Tim.
Yeah, so as the Chief mentioned, forces were asked to provide 12 months data to the Home Office, and I understand that data will be published force by force in October, so the Home Office are about to publish that. Within West Yorkshire, officers and staff are required to submit the use of force forms via an app, so they can do that on their mobile device, or it can be done on a desktop as well. So it's an electronic form that's filled in, but we encourage officers to do it on their mobile devices. The Chief mentioned the categories, and I'll just quickly run through those. So the first one is tactical communications. So this is about the officer being present and how they talk to or pose in front of a member of the public. And I use that because of the way you look and you talk makes a difference. So that's about tactical communications. We then look at handcuffing, which includes both compliantly, where we ask somebody, "I'm going to put some handcuffs, you put your hands out," and they do that, and non-compliantly, where we do have to apply a handcuff and then use a bit of force then to restrain the individual. We then look at the use of the police baton, which includes drawing as well as striking, so just because we get it out doesn't mean we're going to hit somebody with it. We look at the number of spit and bite guards, both within the custody suites and without on the streets. And then we use a device called the CED, which most of you will probably know as a taser, but its technical name is the conductive energy device. And we look at that both as when the taser is drawn, whether it's aimed at an individual, whether it's red dot it, because it has the ability to highlight to somebody that we're pointing it at them. We can arc it, and we can fire the cartridges, or there is what's known as a drive stun, which is where the taser is used to make contact with the subject, and all of those are measured separately. And then the final category of force that's used is where we aim or fire a Section 5 firearm and the use of the firearm. So in terms of the numbers, 16,165 use of force reports were submitted in the 12-month period, 1st of April 2017 to the 31st of March 2018. And just to highlight the numbers in that, 9,889 occasions for tactical communications, through 4,110 use of handcuffs. I won't go through every one, but I will mention the other one, 64 firings of taser, because I know that's one that has a significant resonance with the public. And I just highlight that again, 16,165 times we've used force, but only on 64 occasions has a taser actually been fired, which is a very low percentage. And in terms of firearms, we've not discharged a police firearm in that period, and there have been in that period 148 reports where we've pointed a firearm at an individual in the course of an operation. The other side of that, we also monitor the officers that are injured whilst using force, and there are 856 records of officers being injured during that use of force. And again, just a reminder to people that officers are allowed to use force, within the course of their duties, but there are legal requirements surrounding that, and that's covered by Section 3 of the Criminal Law Act 1967, Common Law and the Human Rights Act 1998 in particular. There are other powers as well, but those that provide the legal framework. And again, all officers are trained in use of the National Decision Model, which they should use when justifying their use of force.
No, thanks so much. It is an interesting report, and I did have a chance, along with Jane and a few others, to talk to some of our specialist officers up at the Cargate facility, and they were telling us about the very rigorous regime that they have to comply with around the training and the fit for purpose, being able to use firearms in that case. So that's really appreciated. Just 2 or 3 questions in terms of the report. Doesn't appear to include any sort of equality data in terms of the use of force. Do we have any trend information in relation to the equality strands that we need to be aware of?
I do have a breakdown by some of the statistics, just to give you. So in terms of gender of the subject, 82% perceived gender was male, and 16% of the perceived gender was female. For those of you that do maths, that means about 2%. It wasn't noted, but which is an area that we want to improve on, because we shouldn't really have that gap. We look at the breakdown in terms of age of the subject. So 10.6% was between 11 and 17 years of age. I know that's the subject that's been in the media about use of force on juveniles. But the majority, 54.8%, was between 18 and 34 years, 26.3% between 35 and 49 years of age, and then 5.5% between 50 and 64 years of age, and there's tiny percentages outside that. And then we also look at the perceived ethnicity of the subject. 79% perceived ethnicity was white, 6% perceived was black, 9.8% was Asian, 2.2% mixed, and then 0.1% was Chinese. And again, there's a little bit of do, don't know, or not noted again, which is something that we need to improve on. And the final statistic we do look at is the disability of the subject. And again, I know that's been a topic that's hit the media. So 23% of our would say we're mentally disabled in terms of the subjects. But in terms of trends, this is the first report where we've gathered it in this way, so I can't give you trends. That's just our initial statistics at the minute, and we'll look at that trends as we get further figures.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful, Tim, and having that data available in the future will be helpful. Thanks. Based on the figures mentioned in paragraph 4, do we have an estimate of the percentage of the use of force not being reported by West Yorkshire police officers and staff, and if that is being tackled in any way?
Our best guess is that we're probably recording between a third and a half, and therefore we're not recording a half to 2/3, and that's based on the number of arrests that are made and people that end up in the custody suites versus the number of reports. So all commanders have had a personal communication from myself about this, and I think this falls into 2 areas. One of this is about education, because officers sometimes just think it's another form to fill in, rather than understanding that we use this and it's actually for their benefit, and understanding what force is used and why. And then I have to be honest, there's probably a little bit of what you might call management grit required, in that this is a new process, and so this is about a normal process, a normal new process. We need to reinforce it and encourage people to do that. So I'm confident that it will get better year on year, but will I solve it next year?
I am confident that at the serious end, the accuracy will be far, far greater. It is more likely to be at the tactical communications end, where, to be really frank, I can understand why a lot of people may not think I need to fill a use of force form in. we can have a look at those figures versus the complaint figures that we get around use of force, so we can get some kind of direct correlation. I am encouraged though, based on the figures that we've just been talking about in terms of equality, if my maths is correct, I think what we're talking about in terms of non-white perceived ethnicity is around about 18.1%, which is roughly where the census figures are telling us. But of course, that's based on the first year's data, and we need to make sure that we are getting as much accurate recording as possible. So I think what we probably need to do over the next 12 months is make sure that we are happy that those more serious cases are absolutely, those figures are correct, and then try and work out what the gap might be. The other reality is of course, we're basing that on the number of arrests and an assumption that use of force will be made, and of course some arrests we won't have use of force.
Yeah. No, thanks so much for that report, and you know, I accept there's always a balance to be struck in not creating too much bureaucracy, but on the other hand, when we're talking about use of force, that there is that need to have confidence and transparency in what's going on. So thanks very much for that. Thanks.